Well, Trump was sitting down at some table with all the head defense contractors a couple months ago, and it was after the Khashoggi, dismemberment in the embassy. And he was openly talking about how we cannot stop that $110 billion weapons deal. And you should see just the glee on these people's faces. I mean, it's just unbelievable how transparent it is, especially under Trump.
That was a weird conversation who was he being interviewed by? Oh, Steve Hilton, my friend. He was interviewing Trump, and they were talking about and Trump was openly discussing how these people want to go to war. The military-industrial complex wants to go to war. I mean, Trump saying that, he didn't want to have anything to do with this, but that they want to go to war. And it's Trump is a weird guy because he's such a loose cannon that he says shit like that that Obama would keep in his cards. Obama would hide his cards. But Trump, hate him or love him, he gives you glimpses that you're not going to get as far as what kind of influence does the military-industrial complex really have on policy change and decision-making and whether or not they take action. And he was openly discussing it.
He removes the mask.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I think that he's talking out of both sides of his mouth, because on one hand he says that kind of stuff. But then on the other hand, he hired all the most rabid war generals in his cabinet, and also just John Bolton. Come on, this is like a maniacal neoconservative who's been vying for war with Iran since the day he was born. So it's like, if you don't want war with Iran, he campaigned on it, so we know that he hates Iran. He campaigned on abolishing the nuclear deal with Iran, but then he picks John Bolton to lead all of these efforts. It's like starting a fire and then getting applauded and congratulated when you stop the fire at the last minute before it erupts and takes over the whole planet. And that's what would happen if we actually did bomb Iran. I think that people don't understand how precarious the situation is that Trump and these cronies have laid out.
Not just but came so close to being a reality just a week ago.
You mean you don't think we should go to war for bombing oil tankers and Saudi oil tankers? You don't think we should go to war over that?
Shooting down a robot?
Yeah.
They shot our robot. That's it.
I would die for Saudi oil tankers. I'd be the first one to put my body on the line.
There was a lot of people that were saying this seems like the Gulf of Tonkin too. They were like, I'm not buying this at all. There were so many people that were really kind of credible people who were openly saying this stinks. It just seems staged. It seems like some bit. Why would they do that?
They're just trying so hard because they want to provoke Iran to the point where Iran will be forced to respond. And this is after suffocating, asphyxiating sanctions that are costing people's lives.
What is it? For the folks at home that haven't been paying attention to this, what is it that makes them want to go to war with Iran?
So we have to just look at what Iran is. Iran just won its independence less than 100 years ago in an era and a wave of anti-colonial struggles, and we immediately, the MI6 as well as the CIA, instigated a coup. So we always talk about how we want Iran to have democracy. They had democracy. They had a revolution, a people's revolution that was overthrown. We overthrew Mohammad Mossadegh and instated a absolute monarchy for decades, and at the time it had the highest human rights abuses documented in the world. It was pretty unique in that sense, and you can only imagine why Iran is the way it is today. And there was such a suppression of the left and of the Communist Party in Iran that the Islamic revolution happened, and the Ayatollah was the leader of that political movement, and that's why Iran has the political system it has today. But it's about the oil, man. It's always about the oil, and it's always about the foreign domination of the region. They hate that Iran is an independent country and doesn't bow down to U.S. imperialism and U.S. capitalism. And Iran also is allies with a lot of states that Israel and the U.S. and Saudi Arabia do not want it to be allies with. Hezbollah, Hamas. And so that's a big problem for the U.S., and it's getting in the way of a lot of kind of goals in the region. But it's really fascinating when you look at what actually happened, because, the nuclear deal was amazing. It was huge. Trump keeps belaboring the fact that Iran should not have nuclear weapons. They didn't have nuclear weapons. They never did. And they were agreeing to never have them. That was the whole Iran nuclear deal. But Trump just immediately rescinded that, slapped insane sanctions on Iran, and now, sanctions every month, just continuing to constrict their economy, and even basically sanctions on threatening sanctions on China and India and other countries that actually do deals with Iran now too, which is totally insane. So once you do that, and then you say, well, you're hitting yourself, why are you doing this? It's like, no, you're doing this to them. And on top of that, John Bolton keeps saying, there's all these unique threats coming from Iran. We need to surround them with all these warships. And they keep sending thousands of more troops. So you're getting to a position now, and now the drone, right? We're flying a drone into Iranian airspace and expecting that they're not going to shoot that down. Why the fuck are we flying a drone in Iran? The fuck would we do if Iran flew a drone in here?
Right.
I mean, it's just unbelievable, the chauvinism and arrogance of the U.S. to be doing all this shit and then be like, okay, now you guys are a belligerent threat. We have to do something. It's like, no, you guys are the ones encircling them, enclosing all of their, basically just encapsulating their entire territory and threatening them over and over and over again, basically hoping for something to happen. And if you look back at the Gulf of Tonkin, there was a guy who was actually on the USS Maddox, the ship that was eventually attacked and got us into the war with Vietnam. And he even said, my dad was on the ship and he said, we had no idea why we were there. And one of the generals or captains on the ship just said, they want us to be hit. They want us to be attacked so they can get into a war that they want to get into. And that's exactly what's going on. And what's sad is whoever's in the Navy circling Iran, they're going to be the ones who fucking die when Iran does launch back. They're sacrificing themselves for these generals and defense contractors' profits.